Should the Seattle Mariners make a trade for this Los Angeles Dodger? Let's talk about it. So this was something that was brought up as soon as the Seattle Mariners ended up not getting Ha-Seong Kim, and he ended up going to the Los Angeles Dodgers, and that discussion came up with Gavin Lux. Now, obviously, at the time of that happening, it was just people speculating on maybe something the Seattle Mariners should do or at least consider, since now the Dodgers pretty much have a massive logjam in the infield. But it basically came out saying that the Dodgers are going to use Ha-Seong Kim as a massive utility man, so he's going to play pretty much every position he possibly can. So I hadn't really thought much of it until this tweet came out yesterday from Pat Ragazzo. Sorry if I'm saying his name wrong. Like you guys know, I'm not good with names, but this tweet came out basically saying, sources, Yankees showed some interest in a potential trade for Dodgers infielder Gavin Lux a few weeks ago. Mariners are said to have been more aggressive in their pursuit of Lux. Yet again, this is another player that Seattle Mariners fans are going back and forth on whether they should really go out and get him or not. So in today's video, we're going to go over a deep dive into who Gavin Lux is as a player and if it's worth it for the Seattle Mariners to go pursue him. So Gavin Lux is actually a very interesting player because he has shown some massive flashes of where he can be an awesome hitter, but then he has other flashes where he is really bad. So as you can tell by the screenshot on your screen, Gavin Lux is a career .252 average hitter with a 99 WRC plus, a career 5.5 WAR, career 28 home runs, and 155 RBIs. Lux's best season came back in 2022, where he had 6 home runs, 42 RBIs, a 276 batting average, a 113 WRC plus, and a 2.7 WAR. As you can tell, there is no 2023 season, and that's because Gavin Lux ended up doing something with his knee where he tore his ACL, his MCL, and had significant damage to his right hamstring. So he unfortunately ended up missing all of the 2023 season, so last year was his first official season back, where he did play in 139 games. Now, there is a little bit of concern, at least doing my research on Gavin Lux's injury history. As you can tell by the screenshot, he has had about 8 injuries in his career dating back to 2021. Obviously, some more serious than others, especially the knee last year that he missed all of last season for, but he did have still, he has a lot of wrist injuries, back, neck, back, hamstring, so a lot of leg, back, and wrist stuff. So I'm not saying that that would be a massive concern like it would be if you go out and get someone like Yoan Moncada, who really has been plagued by injuries throughout his career, but Gavin Lux definitely doesn't have a clean history himself. Now, going back into a little bit of if the Mariners were to get him through a trade, they would have him for 2 seasons. He would be a free agent in the 2027 season, but he would come relatively cheap because he's still in his ARB years. He is estimated to make about $2.7 million, but I have seen numbers up a little bit higher than 3. But either way, nothing too expensive for the Seattle Mariners to go out and get. Now, I'm not exactly sure what the Dodgers would be looking for because they are already stacked enough, so I don't know what the Mariners would have to give up in this trade. Maybe the Dodgers would be interested in some prospects for this, but then again, Gavin Lux's value is not super high. Like I said, he had a decent year last year. A 1.5 WAR is decent, but he has not really had any massive standout years. But let's dive a little bit deeper into some of his offensive statistics and his splits, as well as some defensive stats. So Gavin Lux really saved his season in the second half of the year last year. Like I told you guys, in 2024, he had a .251 batting average, when in the first half of the season, he only had a .213 batting average. And in the second half, he ended up having a .304. So he really ended up saving his season in the second half. He also did something similar in 2021, where in the first half, he had a .231 batting average, and in the second half, he had a .284. So he seems to be a much better player in the second half of the season for whatever reason that may be. Last year, he even had only a 60 WRC plus in the first half of the season, and then in the second half of the season, he had a 152. So that is a massive jump for a player from the first half to the second half of the season, which I guess isn't really unnormal for guys. Some guys feel much better after the All-Star break. Once they get a little bit of a break in there, they come back in the second half ready to go and even stronger. But again, we kind of want a guy that's more consistent throughout the year. Now let's move into one of the important questions, and that is, will Gavin Lux be an everyday player? And unfortunately, the answer would be no. And the reason I say that is for the very obvious one, is he struggles mightily against left-handed pitching. Gavin Lux in his career only has 28 home runs, and 25 of those have come off of right-handed pitching. While also in terms of batting average versus right-handers in his career, he has a .264 batting average, while versus left-handers, he only has a .202. So it's not the worst thing in the world, but it definitely is a massive gap. Even his K percentage is also much higher. Versus right-handed pitchers, it's a 21.1%, while versus left-handed pitchers, it is a 27.1%. So basically a 6% increase when he's going against lefties. Even in terms of RBIs, he only has 20 RBIs versus left-handed pitchers in 252 at-bats, while against right-handed pitchers, he has 1,081 at-bats, where he has a total of 135 RBIs. And the reason I'm saying that is just there's a very clear difference on how he performs versus left-handers versus right-handers. Now, that is obviously something you have to bring up, because if you do bring over Gavin Lux, he will most likely be a platoon at second base with somebody probably like Ryan Bliss, who can hit lefties much better, or maybe even Demo on certain days. But Gavin Lux will probably be playing, obviously they face more righties than they do lefties, so he will be playing in a decent amount of games. But either way, he still will most likely be a platoon. So you bring up the question of whether if he will be a platoon, well, is his defense good enough where it's worth to keep him in the game? And the answer is really no. Last season, Gavin Lux played 1,053 innings at second base, where he had a -4 outs above average. Now, you could bring up the question on whether his knee was a massive factor in that or not, because in 2022, he played 819 innings at second base, where he had a 3 outs above average. So that is a 7-point difference and honestly a massive drop-off. They've tried him at shortstop before, where in 2021, he had a -5 outs above average. They've tried him in the outfield, where he all has negative outs above average. So overall, he is just not a great defender. Now, do I think that's something that Perry Hill can't fix and make him a better player overall in the infield? I do think that is something that can get fixed. But as of right now, he is not a great defender at all. Even his FRV last season, which is his fielding run value, he had a -3. So like I said, there is just not much to show for on the defensive side. So is Gavin Lux the piece that's going to come into the Seattle Mariners lineup and make them that much better? Not really, but is he a player that could probably make a little bit of an impact? I do believe so, especially offensively, because I don't know, like I said, he has peaks. Like he had 304 average all in the second half last year, which is a very bright side of his game. But then again, he has seasons where he comes in and only hits, 213 in the first half of the year, which is something that the Seattle Mariners do not need. So is it arguably a low risk, low cost move? Absolutely. He's only going to make probably $3 million this next year, and then probably only $4 million the next year after, because he also has another ARB year in 2026. So is it a move that I think the Seattle Mariners should make to fix their second base problem? I don't know. I don't really think it's overly worth it. I could see, I wouldn't be mad if they went out and did it, especially if they didn't have to give up much to acquire him. But in my opinion, at that point, might as well bring back Jorge Polanco and see what he can do after getting surgery on his knee. The problem is there's just not too many options to pick from right now, especially with letting so many free agents already go off the board and not being able to sign guys like Hyun-Sung Kim, who would be kind of in that super utility role. But Gavin Lux is only 27 years old, so maybe he will have some of his prime years coming up, which would be awesome if the Seattle Mariners did get him, and he did have some prime years in 2025 and 2026. Because at the end of the day, the Mariners are going to need to make a move to make this team better. They cannot really roll out what they have right now and expect to go out and win 95 games. So I'm very much in the air on if Gavin Lux would be a good pickup for the Seattle Mariners or not. Like I said, I see some upsides, but I also see a lot of downsides that come into play for the Seattle Mariners. But please let me know what you guys think down in the comments, whether you think the Seattle Mariners should really go out and make this move for Gavin Lux. Let me know what you think it would cost, because I don't really know what the cost would be there and if the Dodgers would even be looking for any kind of prospects, which is obviously the Mariners have a massive surplus of. But otherwise, I hope you guys did enjoy the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.